Welcome to another video. This one's going to be on the topic of age. A question I get a lot is, am I too old to go back to school, to start X-ray school? And I had about half of this done earlier today, and I kept getting phone calls. So I just decided to take a break and come back to it. Let me jump into, let's see, right here. So I have done 4 videos on this so far. And in the notes on the course on my website, the Radiologic Technologist.com blog, you'll see links to all the different videos. But for the sake of this course, I just went through them all and kind of made a summary for you, and I'm going to review that. And then I'll just link to the other videos. If you really want to dig further into the topic, you can watch the videos. I'll show you real quick something funny here. And the funny part is me and what I have looked like over the past 3 years. So the oldest video I've got on it, I think, is this one was 3 years old. This is me. So this is, I do Santa Claus every year, I used to bleach it out. Sometimes I'd have to bleach it 3 times to get all the color out of it. The color's pretty much gone at this point. I've been doing Santa for 6 years, so back then I had a lot more color. But this was grown. I used to grow it out October, November, December, play Santa, and then shave it off in January. And so lately, I've just been letting it go to see what it looks like. But I did Am I Too Old to Become an X-Ray Tech 3 years ago. And then I did it again for a question that came in at 59. Will I get hired if I graduate at 59? And this is some goofy biker. I don't know what that is. And I had dyed it all because when it's all bleached out, it's just pure white. And so then I changed the color back to a darker color for a while. And I don't even mess with it anymore. I just leave it the way it is. Now I use a white hairspray. Uh, anyway, so I did this for a question. If I go to X-ray school and graduate at age 59, will I get hired? And then again, this was after some business meetings, and I'm in my business attire. And somebody had asked me, when does X-ray tech age become a concern? Am I going to be too old? And I addressed it again. And then finally, Sunny. This was just this summer after I'd gone out to California to hang out at the beach, went to some surfing competitions. Am I too old at 40 to go back to school? So I went through these videos, and which is always good for a chuckle when you watch yourself on a video. But I think we step back on this topic, and the first thing I say when people say, the other thing I get a lot is, I would do that, but I have all these other things that take priority, right? I would go to X-ray school, but I have kids to take care of. I would go to X-ray school, but I have to pay bills. I would go to X-ray school, but I don't know how to pay for it. All these excuses, right? Excuse lists. People don't realize you really only need one excuse, right? All the rest of them are just a waste of time, as long as you have one good excuse. But my point in making this video is, stop making excuses. And if you want to do it, do it. So what I say to people when they have all these excuses is, I say, I wouldn't even worry about what your excuse is, because you haven't even applied. You may apply and not even get in. So if you apply and don't get in, doesn't matter what your excuse is, you didn't get in anyway. If you really want to go, just apply and see if you can even get in. I got in my first time. My wife had to apply 3 times to get in. I know other people that have applied multiple times. So before you start worrying about how am I going to be able to work and go to school at the same time, or how am I going to get a babysitter or whatever, apply and see if you can even get in. And then if you can get in, then you've still got time to figure it all out, or delay, defer your admittance for one semester, one school year, one program, whatever. Push it off. Usually they'll let you defer one time, but every school's different. So that's where I start, is before you fret about, am I too old? Am I too this or that, or can't do it because of these reasons? Apply. Now that's a whole nother video, because you need to be serious about picking a school and applying and understanding the application process and that, which is part of what I'll talk about here. So the first video that I did, let me move this over. First video I did, I kind of veered off a little bit into cross training a lot. So if you want to know some cross training stuff, watch the first video. But here's the thing: if you do go back to school for X-ray, remember you're not just going back to school for X-ray. You're opening the doors to a plethora of opportunities, because going to school for X-ray means you come out, graduate, take your national board exam, and if you pass the board exam, you can be an X-ray tech, or you can go be an apps specialist for any of the major vendors and teach people how to use the X-ray machines, or you can join any of these major vendors and learn how to fix the machines and be an engineer, or you can teach in a school program the classes that you just took, or I mean, there's a lot of things, when you decide to go back to school for X-ray, you're opening the door for a ton of possibilities. Not to mention, go check out my videos on all the different modalities or departments that are inside of the radiology department, because we've got about 15 different things you can do, not just X-ray. I'm talking about CT, MRI, ultrasound, mammo, DEXA, interventional, nuke med pet, uh, cardio interventional, radiation therapy. And then there's offshoots of all that. There's radiation safety officer. I mean, there's just so much you can do that starts right here with this little 2-year program. So I would say that if you're thinking about going back to school, do your homework to figure out where you want to go and what you want to do, because you no longer have to go to X-ray school first these days. So if you're thinking X-ray because that's just all let's say you have a limited understanding of how radiology works and all the different departments, you don't have to start at X-ray school first. Like 20 years ago when I started, I became an ultrasound tech, but in order to apply for ultrasound school, you had to have an X-ray license first. You don't have to do that anymore. You can go straight into ultrasound school. You can go straight into nuclear medicine school. You can go straight into MRI now, where before you had to go through X-ray first. So if you're thinking about going back, do your homework and figure out where you want to go and what you want to do. And then see if you can go straight into that advanced modality, or there's even a limited role if you're short on time, or kind of like me, I like to take it slow. I like to take it step by step. I went to X-ray school and I learned CAT scan, and then I went to ultrasound school and I learned MRI, and I got my bachelor's and my master's and my doctorate. I took it one step at a time and got to the end goal. And a lot of these programs kind of force you to do that. Like a nursing program typically puts you through a CNA program first, and then you might do the LPN program and then the BSN. Now, some people can jump from CNA to RN and they're fine with that, but other people need a little more time, need a little more help with the homework, can't jump straight to the hard stuff. So they take that middle step of LPN. You can do the same thing here. So figure out what you want to do and then look into that program. The second video I did that was about graduating at the age 59, there's a good comment on that video from a professor, and it says, and I pinned it to the top, it says, the employee's maturity and professional skills can shine when compared with immature techs with little professional skills developed. We have graduated students in their 50s and they have been employed. So people, when we get older, we think, well, how are we going to compete? How are we going to compare? They're going to run circles around us, these kids. There's a lot of things employers look for in a mature employee that you can't find in a younger employee. And I talk about that in some of these videos, but it's kind of you can look at it two ways. Well, I get a young person with a clean slate and I'll train them the way I want them, and they'll only know what I teach them. So they're not confused by what they've learned somewhere else. But on the other side of that coin is a mature individual who's had other jobs, who understands what it means to work with a team, who understands what it means to give good patient care and long-term follow-up and all those things that come with years of being in the field, is also a benefit. So there's that good comment from the professor. And then, we're worried about coming out and giving up a so-so paying job for PRN work and night shifts. That was one of the comments from somebody. Was I'm worried if I go back to school, I'll be giving up my decent paying job for something that's going to pay better, but I'll only be able to find PRN work, which means part-time work, and night shifts. So you got to be clear and understand the hierarchies of these radiology departments typically work in a manner that everybody wants the day shift. Everybody wants the 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And so that's where your longest employed techs are, the seniority, if you will. And if you want to get on that shift, you typically have to take a job on the second or third shift or the weekends and wait your turn. Typically, it doesn't take too long, just depends on the size of the hospital. But this person that said, I don't want to give up my so-so paying job for a better paying job where I only get PRN work or weekends. Well, that's might be where you start out. Not necessarily, because it always depends on what position's open when you graduate. But if you do a good job at your clinical rotation, you should be a shoe-in for a job there because they've already seen you work for 2 years. They've already trained you to work on all their stuff. They'd be stupid not to hire you if you did a good job in your clinicals. So I want you to be realistic and realize that you can't always jump into the day shift at these facilities. And sometimes the PRN, so PRN work means you work when they need you. It's not necessarily a part-time job. There's full and part-time that have guaranteed hours. PRN is the Latin for as needed, and they'll call you and say, we need help tomorrow. Are you available? And as a PRN tech, you can actually say, no, I don't want that shift. You can say no as much as you want because a PRN only works when they want to. You just have to be careful saying that too much or they might stop calling you as much. So be realistic when you think about, going through school and graduating, coming out, be realistic about what type of job you think you're going to get. But I'm not saying you can't get a day shift job, but that's how a lot of these places work. Covered PRN, what management wants in employees. So I already kind of covered this. These are notes I made as I watched my videos. Management wants somebody that is trainable and has some good work values, and you see all that in your clinical rotations. Now, if you want to, you can research the administrators at the hospital where you want the job. You can check them out. You can see if they've been there a while or if that hospital turns admins over every year and a half, 2 years. I worked at a hospital as a director. Actually was the longest surviving director there at 5 years. And I met literally 5 other directors who had my position before me. They last 1 to 2 years over a 12-year period before they left and did something else. So that's usually a sign there's an issue if you're turning over directors that often. So if you're getting serious and you're going to go to school for this, you need to figure out where you're going to live, where you want to, if you're talking about, am I too old to go back? Well, figure out where you're going to spend the rest of your life at if you can, and then look at the schools in that area because you're going to do your clinicals in that area, and then you'll get the job in that area. If you live in Alabama and you go to school in Alabama and you graduate and then you move to Florida to live there, well, those Florida hospitals aren't going to know how you work. They're not going to know your work ethic. They don't know you. That's not going to give you an advantage when you're applying for jobs. So think about where you're going to want to work your job at and start looking at going to school in that area so that you do your clinical in that area. I also have other videos to talk about how to pick your clinicals. That's kind of plays into that role. You need to understand how clinicals work, and if you can pick your own clinicals, you need to learn how to research the clinical locations and what works best for you. Let's see. And you can ask around in social groups about the staff. You can get on Facebook groups and ask. There's ways of figuring out information about who works there and what kind of administration runs it. And then you can ask the school that you're thinking about going to, how many people do you graduate at my age? How many people over my age? What's your dynamic on age and graduation? How many, let's say you're 60, how many people over the age of 50 go through your program and not only graduate, but also pass the boards? Because it doesn't really matter so much that you graduated. What matters is that you pass the boards. I mean, you have to graduate to pass the board, but you don't want to graduate and then not be able to pass the boards, or you did the school for nothing. Okay, and then the next video, when does Xray tech age become a concern? I just kind of talked about a lot of the same things, but I talked about how employers can't discriminate based on age, or they can get in big trouble. And if you find out in any way that they did, you certainly can make a stink about that. So let's break down this worry. Let's see if we can name 6 or 7 things that may be causing this worry. So number one, maybe you're thinking, can I handle going back to school at my age? Can I handle the schedule, getting up early, going sitting in classes, listening to lectures all day? Can I handle the studying and the staying up late and the constant reading assignments and homework assignments? Can I handle burning the candle at both ends, so to speak, because you have to work and go to school, or take care of kids and go to school, or whatever? Or maybe you're worried about the physical aspects of healthcare, because there's a lot of patient contact and moving patients around and moving equipment and machines. So I would say at this point, all of that is something that you could manage, including the physical part of it, because we're really taught that you should get lifting help when moving patients. You should get assistance when there are things that are heavier than 40 pounds. You should never be trying to lift a patient on your own, no matter how old or how big or how small you are. So, only you know if you can handle the schedule and the studying and burning the candle at both ends. But when it comes to the physical part of it, there's always somebody you can call to help you out. And if you're on the night shift, you just have to call somebody from the emergency department and say, hey, I'm coming to get your patient for an X-ray. I'm probably going to need some lifting assistance. Do you have an aide or a CNA, or can the patient's nurse come with me, or whatever? Another thing that you might be considering is well, my classmates and I get along because I'm older and maybe they're younger. Will they respect me? Will they give me a hard time? Will they ignore me? Will they treat me different? And that's something that I would say I don't ever really hear about that. I had, when I went to X-ray school, I was like 27. We had a 55-year-old. She was just one of us. And whenever this question comes up on our Facebook group, everybody says non-issue. So I wouldn't worry about that. The next one, number 3, will I be hired when I graduate? So you can ask your school if they help place people. They should be helping people get placed in jobs. But you should also know that employers are desperate for X-ray techs right now. And especially if they just saw you do your clinicals, they're going to know that you're a good, strong worker, and they're not going to have an issue. But being hired has a lot to do with your just your how you are as an employee, not necessarily have anything to do with your age. Do you come to work on time? Do you stay late if needed? Do you get the work done that needs to get done? Are you courteous? Are you respectful? Do you seem to know what you're doing, or are you always asking questions and messing things up? Which a lot of that again gets solved at clinical rotations. Number 4, how long can my career last at this age? So you're thinking, if I'm 60, how much longer could I do this? Well, again, that's up to you. But I have personally had employees that were 65, 66 that still wanted to work and were still employed. To me, you work as long as you want to work, as long as you're able to get the job done. So that's really up to you how long you want to work. My dad worked into his 70s. Number 5, you should know that your clinicals give you a chance to show your worth, which covers concerns of age. So I kind of touched on that, but you should know you're going to do a 2-year clinical rotation, and you're basically going to be working for free. You're actually paying the school to work for free at the hospital, but you're going to be treated just like a regular employee after you've been there a little bit of time and kind of know what's going on. And so you're going to get the chance to show them that you show up on time, that you stay late to help, that you're a team player, that you don't complain all the time, that you don't talk trash or gossip during the downtime. That you're going to show your work ethic during your clinical rotation. And then number 6 is kind of what I said earlier. Consider going to a school where you plan on staying and living to maximize the chance of future employees getting to know you. So think about that. Think about where you're going to go, and that's it. The rest of my notes are all the stuff I've already said. So age is not a limiter. In fact, it's protected. You can't be discriminated on it. It's really when you're asking, am I too old? You really are going to have to figure that out for yourself, because you're the only limiting factor. You're always going to have naysayers, and you're always going to have people saying you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that, or why are you doing that? I had people saying that about my master's and my doctorate. Why are you going for a master's degree? It's not going to get you paid any more money. And it didn't, and I didn't expect it to, and that's not why I did it. Same thing for my doctorate. It's not going to get you paid anymore as a director of radiology. Why are you doing it? Because it's a personal goal of mine. It's something I want to do. So at the age of 50, I got my doctorate degree. So, could I have said, I'm too old, who cares? It's not going to get me any more money. I could have said that, but I chose to do it. I've always wanted to get a doctorate, and so I figured it out and I did it. So if you have any other questions about, am I too old or whatever, pop on the Facebook group that we have, which I'll link below, and ask a question. Ask anybody on here go to school after the age of 50, and look at all the people that pop in. There's tons of them. Age is not a limiting factor. No school will turn you down because of it, and jobs shouldn't. I talk about that in one of my other videos. If there's an administrator out there that's only looking at longevity, okay, if I hire this person at 60 and I spend 6 months training them, best I'll get out of them is 2 to 3 years, right, before they'll want to retire. And they may have that mindset. And that's a subpar mindset that's unsatisfactory in my mind, because you're going to work as long as you want to work, and I'm going to enjoy the fruits of your labor for training you as long as you'll have the job. But to me, it's more than that. It's also about employing a member of the community and keeping the department fully staffed with appropriate employees and staff. Well, I'm short staffed. I could have hired those people that were 55, but I don't want 55-year-olds in my department. So now I'm short staffed, and the rest of my staff's having to work overtime. It's a horrible mentality. So I hope this helps. Again, there's 4 videos to talk about it. I don't know that I can add much more to it. So I'll see you in the next video. Who keeps slamming my door? Slamming, slamming, slamming.